So the roster is out, and I guess you want to hear someone else talk about it. You can hear me talk about it too. Canadian men's roster is out. I figured I'd focus on this since apparently in Ghana, goalkeepers are dropping like flies. A video later this week, or a video tomorrow. Um, so Canada officially released its roster. No real surprises, but let's go through it and talk about a few things that maybe surprises or maybe didn't. Goalkeepers: James Pantemis, Milan Borjan, Dane St. Clair. Defenders: Sam Atakubi, Joel Waterman, Alistair Johnson, Richie Larea, Kamal Miller, Stephen Vittoria, and Derek Cornelius. The midfielders: Liam Fraser, Ishmael Kone, Mark Anthony Kay, David Wotherspoon, Jonathan Osorio, Atiba Hutchinson, Stefan Eustachio, and Sam Piet. And the forwards: Liam Miller, Lucas Cavallini, Ike Ukbo, Tejan Buchanan, Jonathan David, Kyle Laren, Ishmael, Alfonso Davies, and Junior Hoylett. Alright, so I think the biggest surprise, honestly, the injury that Daniil Henry suffered. I mean, I was, not to say that I was unhappy or happy about it. There was just a reality that you turn to accepting that Daniil was going to be on this roster. So the fact that missing 2 weeks took him out, that surprised me. Daniil Henry is the biggest shock, which should tell you about this roster and how much we expected from it. No Henry opens up the door for Waterman. We thought maybe it might open it for someone else, but it doesn't. Which means technically, if you look at them, Alistair Johnson does play as a right center back as well as a right back. But in terms of just pure center backs, you only have 4. Now, this can be a concern because we've seen some versions where they've played Atiba as a center back, and I am not the biggest fan of that, but we have seen times where he's gone to that, Herman that is, and that can work, but it does leave you a little bit vulnerable. I don't mind that if you're playing a team that's going to sit back, and then you can add an additional attacker from the center back, so he's essentially a de facto CDM, but also moving into that space. But that's the first thing. No Kennedy, no Daniil Henry, and only really adding Joel Waterman. I didn't think Lucas McDonald would have made it, but still, that's there. We get to the midfield. Actually, back to the defenders. Then we're only running with one left back. And this is where I thought maybe Raheem Edwards could have snuck into this roster, because we only have one left back. Now, technically, Larea can play the left or the right, granted, so that leaves him there, and that gives you options. He's your swing fullback, but still, it would have been nice to have an additional fullback. Tejan has played right back. He can play right wing back if need be, but I still think it's a little bit light on that position, but we move on and we go. In the midfield, Ishmael Kone's rise really, I think, affected the end of the roster, because with a player like him going up the depth chart, players in the mid tiers of the chart get pushed down. So now, instead of having conversations where you could say like, when Kone was first coming onto the scene, you'd say, hey, maybe you take Kone, maybe you take Theo Corbinu, a winger, maybe Charles Andreas Brim. You know, you look at those players, you think to yourself, maybe those players come through. But with Wotherspoon coming back, Liam Fraser coming back, Ishmael Kone moving up means the end of the roster, you're saying, is it Wotherspoon, is it Fraser, or are you taking Theo? And in this choice, Herman opted to go with the midfield depth, 8 midfielders overall, versus 7 defenders. So I think Kone's rise has done a lot, but in terms of the end of the roster, it really did solidify it with him moving up. There weren't really other options. I think some of the wingers, and I think the main winger we're looking at is Theo, if he would have been or not. In terms of other midfielders, it was good that Herman did talk about Arfield a little bit afterwards. I didn't read much into it. I think the way that Herman positioned it, it was very much a situation where, player had to make a choice, or player made a choice, and was open to coming back, but understood the breakdown of the locker room and the unity of it there. So I don't really take it as what it is. Now, again, there's stories, things everywhere, whether that be about Arfield and the squad. Right? Nothing's ever been confirmed to me, so everything's always been like, well, this is what's happened. Like, no one's told me that, and I'm sure everyone will be polite about it. But the fact that Arfield was an option, the fact that there was only a 46-player roster, a provisional roster that was selected, I mean, you couldn't just name 55? Really? Okay, but I digress with that. So with that, and then the midfield, that's the only real midfield conversation. Nelson wasn't going to make it. Chouanier wasn't going to make it. But in terms of midfielders, these are the midfielders that have been here for time, and the only real exception is Kone, who emerged and came up. So no surprise there. Forwards and wingers, no surprises. 4 and 4 each. You have Hoylett and Buchanan on the right, and then Miller and Davies on the left, and then David, Larin, Ugbo, and Cavallini. No real surprises there whatsoever. And I think they all kind of fit into their role there. So with this roster here, the only real questions I would have had would have been, how close was Theo to coming? Because I think Theo definitely proved to be solid when he was on the pitch. He definitely looked like, in terms of the extra layers it would bring, if it was between him and Brim, I think Theo definitely brought a little bit more consistency, more attacking, more creativity. We even saw a little bit in the Gold Cup semi-final match versus Mexico, where his creativity is coming in. He's putting some shots on frame, missing the frame a little bit, but Pace is able to create some opportunities. That's about the only spot, but I think if it came down between Corb Theo and Liam Fraser, I can understand why Herdman would have gone with Liam Fraser. Fraser has at least a moment. Fraser was available when called. And I think if we're looking at this roster from a rewarding the people who got them to the World Cup, Theo was seldom available. Now, granted, that's his club situation, and that's not all on the player. But if Herdman's going to reward the loyalty, reward the room, and keep the room together, you can understand why this group is here. So there's no real questions. The only real newcomers again, Pantemis because of the injury to Maxim Crepo, speedy recovery. Waterman because of the injury to Daniel Henry, speedy recovery. Kone breaking through because his rise has just been remarkable. And then Ugbo, who's been inching to minutes. One day he'll get a start on an actual pitch. He'll get playing time on an actual pitch and be able to deliver. But we'll see. But yeah, that's the roster. I don't really have any problems with it because I didn't see any real surprises with it. But guys, what do you guys think? I think I've talked enough here. I'm going to stop rambling now.